someday I would like to have a soundtrack. Just some light background music that's just kind of set up for me, but I have no idea what kind of thing I would use. Oop. Just hello? Oh. Get off there. Wake up. There we go. Wake up. Wake up. Ah, cool. Well, Siri's awake. That's always good to know. Got that broadcast going. That wonderful thing. Browser always gives me an error 5000 when I first start streaming. Because it wouldn't be Twitch if it didn't twitch a little. Of course, I got myself muted so I can hear it. Okay, now can I hear me? Hello? I'm quiet. Ouch. I'm really quiet. Let me fix that. Hello? Turn up the mic a little. Turn the mic up all the way. What the hell? Why am I so quiet? Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Hear myself a little bit better now. Okay. Now I'm just going... Why? Okay. Tell me why. Thank you. Trying to get everything set up, and my soundboards never seem to want to cooperate. I swear I don't change them week to week, but they always seem to never sound the same. Of course, anytime I try to do video games, you can't hear a damn thing. But oh well. How's your day been, Nonohana? It's definitely been a long day. Watched as many streamers as I could, but I just couldn't get myself too motivated for much. Of course, now I'm just drinking some mysterious red juice while getting ready to drink Dracula. And a lot of people are starting streaming right now. Oh, neck stiff. Read which way the chat. Okay. But yeah, reading Dracula. Made it up to chapter 4 last week, so I'm going to start with chapter 4 tonight. I didn't do as good a... I didn't set up a background or anything for reading Dracula like I did for Frankenstein, but I could think of a castle I wanted to use for Dracula. Hello. Dang it, why didn't that work? I What is wrong with sound alerts that it has been shorting out on me so much lately? Yeah, I didn't even hear it. I heard it click to start, and that was about it. Hi, Sam. My sound alerts have been doing that a lot lately. Just a bad link or what? I see that cut off too. Sound alerts. Are my blimps working? The hell was that? So did that one go through, or am I just hearing things? No, my cat has decided to join me. That is weird. Those aren't even ones. Okay, what are my channel ones? If I do, I don't know about it. This thing, I'm not even logged into work. What the hell? Okay. Did that at least play right? Well, there's one of the custom shoutouts I had. I need to get back to work on those. I've been doing a lot of them. Yeah, so the blurb, I guess, are going out. Or am I just hearing them? Or am I just hearing them on my end? Which wouldn't surprise me at all. Blurb. Monitor and outputs. Audio. I tried reading the instructions on this thing, but I still can't get it right. Oh well. We're 10 minutes in, so I should go ahead and switch to the reading window, I suppose. Dracula. Okay. Let's see. I guess we can wait until 15 to officially start reading. Why is my model shifted over again? Oh, center, please. Thank you. So anyway, Dracula, starting at chapter 4 tonight. Oh, thanks for large blue diamond. Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to put the blurbs on like the VOD channel so you don't hear them. Because those are most likely copyright strikes. I mean, I got YouTube didn't like me having Vincent Price's laugh on one of my audios, and that was just hilarious. Sony freaking copyrighted. Yeah, bunch of bullshit. And it was the only the laugh. If I had my tongues not animated, I'd be sticking my tongue out way too much. Okay. A couple more minutes, see if anyone wants to come in. I'm lurking in Baffy's channel right now, listening. Okay, I may, yeah. Stick to the 15-minute mark and I'll start reading. So, I hope everyone's had a good day. Been kind of quiet here. This is the first stream I've done while newly medicated. So, because, you know, antidepressants. And stuff that's supposed to help me not cough. So, let's see how well that goes. I think I need a better picture for this book. Better picture of this book anyway. You notice his fangs aren't even his canines, so like halfway back his jaw. I wonder why you have to open his mouth to do that. I mean, if you're gonna bite someone, use the canines. Hey, boy. I do hear the music in the background, right? Baffy's talking about Vaporeon again. Do I not hear my audio? Oh. Oh, sure. There we go. Okay. Well, we are officially after the 15-minute mark, so let's get into the book, shall we? Chapter 4. Jonathan Harker's Journal, continued. I awoke in my own bed. If it be that I had not dreamt, the Count must have carried me here. I tried to satisfy myself on the subject, but could not arrive at any unquestionable result. To be sure, there were certain small evidences, such as that my clothes were folded and laid in a manner which was not my habit. My watch was still unwound, and I am rigorously accustomed to wind it last thing before going to bed, and many such details. But these are no proof, for they may have been evidences that my mind was not usual, and for some cause or another I had certainly been much upset. I must watch for proof. Of one thing I am glad. If it was the Count that carried me here and undressed me, he must have been hurried in his task, for my pockets are intact. I'm sure this diary would have been a mystery to him which he would not have wrote. He would have taken it or destroyed it. As I look around the room, although it has been to me so full of fear, it is now a sort of sanctuary, for nothing can be more dreadful than those awful women who are waiting to suck my blood. 18th May. I may have been down to look at the room again in daylight, for I must know the truth. When I got to the doorway at the top of the stairs, I found it closed. It had been forcibly driven against the jamb, and that part of the woodwork was splintered. I could see that the bolt of the lock had not been shot, but the door was fastened from the inside. I fear it was no dream, and must act on this surmise. 19th May. I'm surely in the toils. Last night the Count asked me in the suavest tones to write 3 letters, one saying that my work here was nearly done, and that I should start for home within a few days. Another, that I was starting on the next morning from the time of the letter. The third, that I had left the castle and arrived in Bistris. I would fain have rebelled, but felt that in the present state of things it would be madness to quarrel openly with the Count whilst I am so absolutely sure of his power. To refuse would be to excite his suspicion, and that could arouse his anger. He knows that I know too much, and that I must not live, lest I be dangerous to him. My only chance is to prolong my opportunities. Something may occur which will give me a chance to escape. I saw in his eyes something of that gathering wrath which was manifest when he hurled that fair woman from him. He explained to me that the posts were few and uncertain, and that my writing now would ensure ease to the minds of my friends, and he assured me that with so much impressiveness that he would countermand the latter letters, which would be held over at Bursus until time in case chance would admit my prolonging my stay, as to oppose him would have been to create new suspicion. I therefore pretend to fall in with his views, and asked him what dates I should put on the letters. He calculated a moment, then said, "The first should be June 12th, the second June 19th, and the third June 29th. I now know the span of my life. God help me. 28th of May. There is a chance of escape, or at any rate being able to send word home. A band of Drazi have come to the castle and are encamped in the courtyard. These Zorganis are gypsies. I have notes of them in my book. They're peculiar to this part of the world, though allied with ordinary gypsies all over the world. There are thousands of them in Hungary and Transylvania, who are almost outside the law. They attach themselves as a rule to a great noble or boyar, and call themselves by his name. They are fearless and without religion, save superstition, and they talk only of their own varieties of the Romani tongue. I shall write some letters home and try to get them to have them posted. I have already spoken to them through the window to begin an acquaintanceship. They took their hats off and made obeisance and many signs. However, I could not understand any more than I could their spoken language. I have written the letters. Mina's in shorthand, and I simply ask Mr. Hawkins to communicate with her. To her I have explained my situation, but without the horrors which I may only surmise. It could shock and frighten her to death were I to expose my heart to her. Should the letters not carry, then the Count shall not yet know of my secrets or the extent of my knowledge. I have given the letters. I threw them through the bars of the window with a gold piece, and made what signs I could to have them posted. The man who took them pressed them to his heart and bowed, and then put them in his cap. I could do no more. I stole back to the study and began to read. As the Count did not come in, I have written here. The Count is come. He has sat down beside me and said in his smoothest voice, he has opened 2 letters. The Svergazi have given these to me, which, though I know not whence they come, I shall of course take care. See? He must have looked at it. One is from you, and the other to my friend Peter Hawkins. The other... Here he caught sight of my strange symbols as he opened the envelope, and the dark look came into his face, and his eyes blazed wickedly. The other is a vile thing, an outrage upon friendship and hospitality. It is not signed. Well, so it cannot matter to us. And he calmly held the letter and envelope in the flame of the lamp until they were consumed. Then he went on. This letter to Hawkins, that I shall, of course, send on, since it is yours. Your letters are sacred to me. Your pardon, my friend, that unknowingly I did break the seal. Will you not cover it again? He held out the letter to me, and with a courteous bow extended me a clean envelope. I could only redirect it and place him and hand it to him in silence. Then he went out of the room, and I could hear him turn softly. A minute later, I went over and tried it. The door was locked. When, an hour or two after, the Count came quietly into the room, his coming wakened me, for I had gone to sleep on the sofa. He was very courteous and very cheery in his manner, and seeing that I had been sleeping, he said, So, my friend, are you tired? Go to bed. There is the surest rest. I may not have the pleasure to talk tonight, since there are many labors to me. But you will sleep, I pray. I passed my room and went to bed, and, strange to say, slept without dreaming. Despair has its own calms. 31st of May. This morning when I woke, I thought I would provide myself with some paper and envelopes from my bag and keep them in my pocket, so that I might write in case I should get an opportunity. But again, surprise. Again, a shock. Every scrap of paper was gone, and with it all my notes, my memoranda relating to the railways and travel, my letter of credit, in fact, all that might be useful to me once I were outside the castle. I sat and pondered a while, then some thought occurred to me, and I made search my portmanteau and then my wardrobe where I had placed my clothes. The suit in which I had traveled was gone, and also my overcoat and rug. I could find no trace of them anywhere. This looked like some new scheme of villainy. 17th of June. This morning, as I was sitting on the edge of my bed, cudgeling my brains, I heard without cracking of whips and pounding and scraping of horses' feet up the rocky path to the courtyard. With joy, I hurried to the window and saw drive into the yard two great leather wagons, each drawn by 8 sturdy horses, and at the head of each a pair of Slovak, with a wide hat, great nail-studded belt, dirty sheepskin, and high boots. They had also their long staves in hand. I ran to the door, intending to descend and try to join them through the main hall, as I thought that way might be opened for them. Again, a shock. My door was fastened on the outside. Then I ran to my window and cried to them. They looked up at me stupidly and pointed. Must be them, the Betmen. For the Skazezi came out. And seeing them pointing to my window, had said something, at which they laughed. Henceforth, no effort of mine, no piteous cry or agonized entreaty would make them even look at me. They resolutely turned away. The little wagons contained great square boxes with handles and thick rope. They were evidently empty by the ease of which the Slovaks handled them, and by the residents as they were gruffly moved. When they were all loaded and packed in a great heap on one corner of the yard, the Slovaks were given some money by the censy, and spitting it on it for luck, lazily went each to the horse's head. Shortly afterwards, I heard the cracking of their whips die away in the distance. June 24th, before morning. At last the Count left me early and locked himself in his own room. As soon as I dared, I ran up the winding stairs and looked out the window which opened south. I thought I could watch for the Count, for there was something going on. The Sivgani are quartered somewhere in the castle and are doing work of some kind. I know it, for now and then I hear a faraway muffled sound as a mattock and spade, and whatever it is, it must be to the end of some ruthless villainy. I had been at the window somewhat less than half an hour when I saw something coming out of the Count's window. I drew back and watched carefully, and saw the whole man emerge. It was a new shock to me to find that he had on a suit of clothes which I had worn while traveling there, slung over his shoulder, the terrible bag which I had seen the women take away. There could be no doubt on his quest, and my garb too. This, then, is his new scheme of evil, that he will allow others to see, as they think, so he may both leave evidence that I have been in the towns and villages posting my letters, and that any wickedness which he may do shall be seen by the local people and attributed to me. It makes me rage to think that this can go on, and whilst I am shut up here, a veritable prisoner, and without that protection of the law which is even a criminal's right and consolation. I thought I would watch for the Count's return, and for a long time sat doggedly at the window. Then I began to notice that there were some quaint specks of light floating in the rays of the moonlight. They were like the tiniest grains of dust that whirled around and gathered in clusters in a nebulous sort of way. I watched them with a sense of soothing, and a sort of calm stole over me. I leaned back in the embrasure in a more comfortable position, so that I could enjoy more of the fully aerial gamboling. Something made me start up, a low, piteous howling of dogs somewhere far below in the valley, which was hidden from my sight. Louder seemed to ring in my ears, and the floating motes of dust take new shapes to the sound as they danced in the moonlight. I felt myself struggling to awake to some call of my instincts. Nay, my very soul was struggling, and my half-remembered sensibilities were striving to answer the call. I was becoming hypnotized. Quicker and quicker danced the dust, and the moonbeams seemed to quiver as they went by me in the mass of the gloom beyond. More and more, till they gathered still, they seemed to take a dim phantom shapes, and then I started, broad awake and in full possession of my senses, ran screaming from the place. The phantom shapes, which were becoming gradually materialized in the moonlight and moonbeams, were those of the three ghostly women to whom I was doomed. I fled and felt somewhat safer in my room, where there was no moonlight, where the lamp was burning brightly. When a couple of hours had passed, I heard something stirring in the Count's room, something like a sharp wail quickly suppressed. And then there was a silence, deep, awful silence, which chilled me. With a beating heart, I tried the door, but I was locked in my prison and could do nothing. I sat down and simply cried. As I sat, I heard the sound in the courtyard without, an agonized cry of a woman. I rushed to the window and, throwing it up, peered out between the bars. There, indeed, was a woman with disheveled hair, holding her hands over her heart as one distressed with running. She was leaning against the corner of the gateway when she saw my face at the window and threw herself forward, and shouted in a voice laden with menace, "Monster, give me my child!" She threw herself on her knees and raised up her hands and cried the same words in tones which wrung my heart. Then she tore her hair and beat her breasts and abandoned herself to the violence of extravagant emotion. Finally, she threw herself forward, and, though I could not see her, I could hear the beating of her naked hands against the door. Somewhere high overhead, probably on the tower, I heard the voice of the Count calling out in a harsh, metallic whisper. His call seemed to be answered from far and wide by the howling wolves. For many minutes had passed, a pack of them poured, like a pent-up dam, liberated through the wide entrance of the courtyard. There was no cry from the woman, and the howling of the wolves was but short. Before long they streamed away singly, licking their lips. I could not pity her, for I knew now what had become of her child, and she was better dead. What shall I do? What can I do? How can I escape from this dreadful thrall of night and gloom and fear? 25th of June, morning. No man knows till he has suffered from the night how sweet and how dear to his heart and eye the morning can be. When the sun grew so high this morning that it struck the top of the great gateway opposite my window, the high spot which it touched seemed to me as if a dove from the ark had appeared. My fear fell from me as if it had been a vaporous garment which dissolved in the warmth. I must take action of some sort while the courage of day is upon me. Last night, when my post-dated letters went to the post, the first of the fatal series which is to blot out every traces of my existence on earth. Let me not think of it. Action! It has always been at night time that I have been molested or threatened, or in some way in danger or in fear. I have not yet seen the Count in the daylight. Can it be that he sleeps when others wake? That he may be awake whilst they sleep? If I could only get into his room! But there's no possible way. The door is always locked. No way for me. Yes, there was a way if one dares to take it. Where his body has gone, why not make another body go? I have seen him crawl from his window. Why should I not imitate it and go in by his window? The chances are desperate, but my need is more desperate still. I shall risk it. At the worst, it can only be death, and a man's death is not a calf's. The dread hereafter may still be upon me. God help me in this task. Goodbye, Mina. If I fail, goodbye. My faithful friend and second father, goodbye, all, and the last, Mina. Same day, later. I have made the effort and, God helping me, have come safely back to this room. I must put down every detail in order. I went whilst my courage was fresh straight to the window on the south side, and once got outside on the narrow ledge of stone which runs around the building on this side. The stones were big and roughly cut, and the mortar had by process of time been washed away between them. I took off my boots and ventured on the desperate way. I looked down once, as to make sure that a sudden glimpse of the awful depth would not overcome me. But after that, kept my eyes away from it. I knew pretty well the direction and the distance of the Count's window, and made for it as well as I could, having regard for the opportunities available. I did not feel dizzy. I suppose I was too excited. And the time seemed ridiculously short till I found myself standing on the windowsill and trying to raise up the sash. I was filled with agitation, however, when I bent down and slid feet foremost to the window. Then I looked around for the Count, but with surprising gladness I made a discovery. The room was empty. It was barely furnished with odd things, which seemed to have never been used. The furniture was something the same style that was in the south rooms, but was covered with dust. I looked for the key, but it was not in the lock. I could not find it anywhere. The only thing I found was a great heap of gold in one corner. Gold of all kinds, Roman and British and Austrian and Hungarian and Greek and Turkish money, covered with a film of dust as though it had been laying long in the ground. None of it, I noticed, was less than 300 years old. There was also chains and ornaments, some jeweled, but all of them old and stained. At the corner of the room was a heavy door. I tried it, for since I could not find the key to the room or the key to the outer door, which was the main object of my search, I must make further examination. All my efforts would be in vain. It was opened. It led through a stone passage to a circular stairway which went steeply down. I descended, minding carefully where I went, for the stairs were dark, being only lit by loopholes in the masonry. At the bottom of the stair was a dark, tunnel-like passage, through which came some deathly, sickly odor of old earth newly turned. As I went through the passage, the smell grew closer and heavier. As I pulled open the heavy door which stood ajar, I found myself in an old, ruined chapel, which had evidently been used as a graveyard. The roof was broken, and in two places were steps leading to vaults, but the ground had recently been dug over, and the earth placed in great wooden boxes, manifestly those which had been brought by the Slovaks. There was nobody about, and I made search for any further outlets, but there was none. Then I went over every inch of the ground, as not to lose a chance. I went down even into the vaults, where the dim light struggled, although to do so was a dread to my very soul. Into two of these I went, but saw nothing except fragments of old coffins and piles of dust. In the third, however, I made a discovery. There, in one of the great boxes, of which there were 50 in all, on a pile of newly dug earth, lay the Count. He was either dead or asleep, I could not say which, for the eyes were open and stony, but without the glassiness of death, and the cheeks had the warmth of life, though through their pallor the lips were as red as ever. But there was no sign of movement, no pulse, no breath, no beating of the heart. I went over to him and tried to find any sign of life, but in vain. He could not have lain there long, for the earthy smell would have passed away in a few hours. By the side of the box was its cover, pierced with holes here and there. I thought he might have had the keys on him, but when I went to search I saw the dead eyes, and in them, dead though they were, such a look of hate, unconscious of my presence. Then I fled the place, leaving the Count's room by the window. Crawling up against the castle wall and regaining my chamber, I threw myself, panting, upon my bed, and tried to think. 29th of June. Today is the date of my last letter, and the Count has taken steps to prove that it was genuine. For again I saw him leave the castle by the same window, and in my clothes. As he went down the wall, lizard fashion, I wished I had a gun or some lethal weapon that I might destroy him. But I fear that no weapon, wrought alone by man's hand, would have any effect on him. I dared not wait to see him return, for I feared to see those weird sisters. Came back to the library, and read there until I fell asleep. I was awakened by the Count, who looked at me as grimly as a man can, as he said, "Tomorrow, my friend, we must part. You return to your beautiful England, I to work which may have some end that we may never meet. Your letter home has been dispatched. Tomorrow I shall not be here, but all shall be ready for your journey. In the morning come to Zensky, who have some labors of their own here, and alas, come the Slovaks. When they have gone, my carriage shall come for you, and shall bear you to the Borgo Pass to meet the diligence from Bohemia to Distris. But I am in hopes I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula." I suspected him, and determined to test his sincerity. It seems I have profanation of the word to write in, the connotation with such a monster. So I asked him point blank, "May I not go tonight?" "Because, dear sir, my coachman and horses are away on the mission." "But I would walk with pleasure. I want to get away at once." He smiled, but a soft, smooth, and diabolical smile that I knew there was some trick behind its smoothness. He said, "And your baggage?" "I do not care about it. I can send for it some other time." The Count stood up and said, with a sweet courtesy which made me rub my eyes, it seemed so real, "Your English have a saying which is close to my heart, for it is spirits which gives rule to boyars. Welcome the coming, speed parting guest. Come with me, my dear friend. Not an hour shall you wait in my house against your will, though sad I am at your going, and that you so suddenly desire it. Come." With a stately gravity, he, with the lamp, preceded me down the stairs in the long hall. Suddenly he stopped. "Hark!" Close at hand came the howling of many wolves. It was almost as if the sound sprang up from the raising of his hand, just as the music of a great orchestra seems to leap under the baton of a conductor. After a pause for a moment, he proceeded, in his stately way, to the door, drew back the ponderous bolts, unhooked the heavy chains, and began to draw it open. To my immense astonishment, I saw that it was unlocked. Suspicious, I looked all around, but could see no key of any kind. As the door began to open, the howling of the wolves grew louder and angrier. Their red jaws, their clamping teeth, their blunt-clawed feet as they leapt, came through the opening door. I knew that I had to struggle at the moment against the Count was useless. With such allies as these at his command, I could do nothing. But still, the door continued to open slowly, and only the Count's body stood in the gap. Suddenly it struck me why this might be the moment of the means of my doom. I was to be given to the wolves, and at my own instigation. There was a diabolical wickedness in the idea, great enough for the Count, and the last chance I cried out, "Shut the door! I shall wait until morning," and covered my face with my hands to hide the tears of bitter disappointment. With one sweep of his powerful arm, the Count threw the door shut, and the great bolts clanged, echoed through the hall, and they shot back into their places. In silence, we returned to the library. After a minute or two, I went to my own room. The last I saw of Count Dracula was his kissing his hand to me with a red light of triumph in his eyes, with a smile that Judas in hell might be proud of. When I was in my room and about to lie down, I thought I heard the whispering at my door. I went to it softly and listened. Unless my ears deceived me, I heard the voice of the Count. Back to your own place. Your time has not yet come. Wait, have patience. Tomorrow night is yours. There was a low, sweet ripple of laughter, and in a rage I threw open the door and saw without the three terrible women licking their lips. As I appeared, they all joined in a horrible laugh and ran away. I came back to my room and threw myself on my knees. Was this how it was to end? Tomorrow, Lord help me, and those whom I endear. 30th of June, morning. These may be the last words I ever write in this diary. I slept till just before dawn, and when I woke, threw myself on my knees, for I determined that if death came, he should find me ready. At last I felt a subtle change in the air, and knew that the morning had come. Then came the welcome cockcrow, and I felt that I was safe. With a glad heart I opened my door and ran down to the hall. I had seen that the door was unlocked, and now escape was before me. With hands that trembled with eagerness, I unhooked the chains and drew back the massive bolts. But the door would not move. Despair seized me. I pulled and pulled at the door, and shook till, as massive as it was, it rattled in its casements. I could see the bolt shot. It could have been locked after I left the Count. Then a wild desire took me to obtain that key at any risk, and I determined then and there to scale the wall again and gain the Count's room. He might kill me, but death now seemed the happier choice of evils. Without a pause, I rushed to the east window and scrambled down the wall, and as before, into the Count's room. It was empty, but with that I was expected. I could not see the key anywhere, but the heap of gold remained. I went through the door in the corner and down the winding stair, along the dark passage to the old chapel. I knew now well enough where to find the monster I sought. The great box was in the same place, close against the wall, but the lid was laid on it, not fastened down, but with the nails ready in their places to be hammered home. I knew I must search the body for the keys, so I raised the lid and laid it back against the wall. Then I saw something which filled my very soul with horror. There lay the Count, but looking as if his youth was half renewed, for the white hair and mustache were changed to dark iron gray. His cheeks were fuller, and the white hair seemed ruby red underneath. Mouth was redder than ever, for on the lips were gouts of fresh blood, which trickled from the corners of the mouth and ran down over the chin and neck. Even the deep, burning eyes seemed set amongst swollen flesh, for the lids and pouches underneath were bloated. It seemed as if the whole awful creature were simply gorged with blood, and lay like a filthy leech, exhausted in its repletion. I shuddered as I bent over to touch him, and every sense in me revolted at the contact. But I had to search, or I was lost. The coming night might see my own body, a banquet in a similar horror way of this horrid three. I felt all over the body, but no signs could I find the key. Then I stopped and looked at the Count. There was a mocking smile on the bloated face which seemed to drive me mad. That this was the being that I was helping to transfer to London, where perhaps for centuries to come he might, amongst its teeming millions, satiate his lust for blood, and create a new and ever-widening circle of semi-demons to batten on the helpless. The very thought drove me mad. A terrible desire came upon me to rid the world of such a monster. There was no lethal weapon at hand, but I seized a shovel which the workmen had been using to fill the cases, and lifting it high, struck, with the edge outward, at the hateful face. But as I did so, the head turned, and the eyes fell upon me, with all their blaze of basilisk horror. The sight seemed to paralyze me, and the shovel turned in my hand and glanced around from the face, merely taking a deep gash above the forehead. The shovel fell from my hands across the box, and as I pulled away, flames of the blade caught the edge of the lid, which fell over again, and hid the horrid thing from my sight. The last glimpse I had was of the bloated face, blood-stained, and fixed with a grin of malice which would have held its own in the nethermost hell. I thought and thought what should be my next move, but my brain seemed on fire, and I waited with the despairing feeling growing over me. As I waited, I heard in the distance a gypsy song sung by merry voices coming near, and through their song, rolling heavy wheels and cracking of whips. The Svani and the Slovaks, of whom the Count had spoken, were coming. With the last look round at the box which had contained the vile body, I ran from the place and gained the Count's room, determined to rush out the moment the door would be opened. With strained ears I listened and heard downstairs the grinding of the key in the great lock, falling back of the heavy door. There must have been some other means of entry, or someone had a key of one of the locked doors. Then there came the sound of many feet tramping and dying away in some passage which sent up a clanging echo. I turned to run down again towards the vault, where I might come up the new passage, but at that moment there seemed to come a violent puff of wind, and the door to the winding stair blew to shock that set the dust of lintels flying. When I ran to push it open, I found that it was hopelessly fast. I was again a prisoner, and the net of doom was closing around me more slowly. As I write, as in this here passage, below the sound of many tramping feet and weight of crashing weights being set down heavily. Doubtless the boxes end at their freight of the earth. There was the sound of hammering, as the box being nailed down. Now I can hear the heavy feet tramping again along the hall, with many other idle feet coming behind them. The door is shut, and the chains rattle. There's a grinding of the key in the lock. I can hear the key withdrawn, and another door opened and shuts. I hear the creak in the lock and the bolt. Hark, in the courtyard, down the rocky way of the roll of heavy wheels, the crack of whips, and the chorus of Svani as they pass into the distance. I'm alone in the castle with those awful women. Ah, Mina is a woman. There is naught in common. They are devils of the pit. I shall not remain alone with them. I shall try to scale the castle wall farther than I have yet attempted. I shall take some gold with me, lest I want it later. I may find a way from this dreadful place. Then away from home. Away to the quickest and nearest train. Away from this cursed spot, from this cursed land where the devil and his children still walk with earthly feet. At least God's mercy is better than that of these monsters, and the precipice is steep and high. At its foot a man may sleep, as a man. Goodbye all, Mina. Chapter 5. A letter from Miss Mina Murray to Miss Lucy Westerna. My dearest Lucy, forgive me my long delay in writing, but I have been simply overwhelmed with work. The life of an assistant schoolmistress is sometimes trying. I am longing to be with you and by the sea. where we can talk freely together and build our castles in the air. I've been working very hard lately because I want to keep up with Johnson's studies. I have been practicing shorthand very studiously. When we are married, I shall be able to be useful to Jonathan, and if I can stereotype enough, I can take down what he wants to say this way and write it on a typewriter for him, at which I am also practicing very hard. He and I sometimes write letters in shorthand, and he is keeping a stenographic journal of his travels abroad. When I am with you, I shall keep a diary in the same way. I don't need one of those 2 pages to a week with Sundays squeezed into a corner diaries. The sort of journal which I can write in whenever I feel inclined. I do not suppose there will be much in the interest of other people, but it is not intended for them. I may show it to Jonathan some day if there is in it anything worth sharing, but it is really an exercise book. I will try to do what I see lady journalists do, interviewing and writing descriptions, and trying to remember conversations. I am told that, with a little practice, one can remember all that goes on that one hears during a day. However, we shall see. I shall tell you all my little plans when we meet. I have just had a hurried few lines from Jonathan of Transylvania. He is well, and he will be returning in about a week. I am longing to hear all his news. It must be so nice to see strange countries. I wonder if Jonathan and I, shall ever see them together. There is the 10 o'clock bell ringing. Goodbye, your loving Mina. Tell me all the news when you write. You have not told me anything for a long time. I hear rumors, and especially of a tall, handsome, curly-haired man. Letter. Lucy Westerner to Mina Murray, 17 Chatham Street. Stay. My dearest Mina, I must say you tax me very unfairly with being a bad correspondent. I wrote you twice since we parted, and your last letter is only your second. Besides, I have nothing to tell you. There's really nothing to interest you. The town is very pleasant just now, and we go a good deal to picture galleries and for walks and rides in the park. As to the tall, curly-haired man, I suppose it was one who was with me in the last spot. Someone has evidently been telling tales. That was Mr. Holmwood. He often comes to see us, and he and Mamma get along very well together. And they have so many things to talk about in common. We met some time ago, and a man that would do just for you, if you are not engaged to Jonathan. He is an excellent parti, very handsome, well off, and of good birth. He is a doctor, and really clever. Just fancy. He is only 29, and he is an immense lunatic asylum under all his own care. Mr. Holmwood introduced him to me, and he is called here to see us, and often comes now. I think he is one of the most resolute men I ever saw, and yet the most calm. He seems absolutely imperturbable. I can fancy what a wonderful power he must have over his patients. He has a curious habit of looking one straight in the face, as if trying to read one's thoughts. He tries this on very much with me, but I flatter myself he has got a tough nut to crack. I know that comes from my glass. Do you ever try to read your own face? I do, and I tell you it is not a bad study, and gives you more trouble than you can well fancy if you have ever tried it. He says that I afford him a curious psychological study, and I humbly think I do. I do not, as you know, take sufficient interest in dress to be able to describe the fashions. Dress is a bore. That is slang again, but never mind. Arthur says that every day. There, it is all out, Mina. We have told our secrets to each other once since we were sisters and children. We have slept together and eaten together and laughed and cried together. And now, though I have spoken, I would like to speak more. Oh, Mina, couldn't you guess? I love him. I'm blushing as I write. Although I think he loves me, he has not told me so in words. Oh, but Mina, I love him. I love him. I love him. There, that does me good. I wish I were with you, dear, sitting by the fire, dressing, as we used to sit, and I would try to tell you what I feel. I do not know how I am writing this letter even to you. I am afraid to stop, or I shall tear up the letter, and I don't want to stop, for I do so want to tell you all. Let me hear from you at once, and please tell me what you think about it. Mina, I must stop. Good night. Bless me in your prayers, and, Mina, pray for my happiness. Lucy. Yes, I do not need to tell you this is a secret. Good night again. Letter. Lucy Westerner to Mina Murray. My dearest Mina, thanks and thanks and thanks again for your sweet letter. It was so nice to be able to tell you and to have your sympathy. My dear, it never rains but it pours. How true the old proverbs are. Here I am, who will be 20 in September, and yet I never had a proposal till today. Not a real proposal. But today I have had 3. Just fancy. 3 proposals in one day. It isn't awful. I feel sorry, really, and truly sorry for the 2 of the poor fellows. Oh, Mina, I am so happy that I don't know what to do with myself. And 3 proposals. But, for goodness sake, don't tell any of the girls, or they will be getting all sorts of extravagant ideas and imagining themselves injured and slighted in their very first day at home. They did not get at least 6. Some girls are so vain. You and I, Mina dear, who are engaged and are going to be settling down very soberly into old married women, can despise vanity. Well, I must tell you about the 3. But you must keep it a secret. Yeah, from everyone. Except, of course, to Jonathan. You will tell him because I would, if I were in your place. Certainly tell Arthur. A woman ought to tell her husband everything. Don't you think so, dear? And I must be fair. Men like women. Certainly their wives. Not to be quite as fair as they are, and women, I am afraid, are not always quite as fair as they should be. Well, my dear, number 1 came just before lunch. I told you of him, Dr. John Stewart, the lunatic asylum man, with a strong jaw and good forehead. He was very cool outwardly, but his nervous all the same. He had evidently been schooling himself as to all sorts of little things, and remembered them, but he almost managed to sit down on a silk hat, which men don't generally do when they are cool. And then he wanted to appear at ease and kept playing with the lancets in a way that made him clearly scream. He spoke to me, Mina, very straightforwardly. He told me how dear I was to him, though he had known me so little, and that his life would be with me to help cheer and cheer him. He was going to tell me how unhappy he would be if I did not care for him. But when he saw me cry, he said that he was a brute and that would not add to my present trouble. Then he broke off and asked if I would love him in time, and when I shook my head, his hands trembled. And then, with some hesitation, he asked me if I cared already for someone else. He put it very nicely, saying that he did not want to wring my confidence from me, but only to know, because if a woman's heart was free, a man might have hope. And then, Mina, I felt a sort of duty to tell him that there was someone. I only told him that much, and then he stood up. He looked very strong and very grave as he took both my hands in his and said I hoped I would be happy, and that if I ever wanted a friend, I must count on him. one of my best. Oh, Mina dear, I can't help crying, and you must excuse this letter for being all blotted. Being proposed to is all nice and all sorts of thing, but it isn't the all happy thing when you have to see a poor fellow, whom you know loves you honestly, going away and looking all broken-hearted. And to know that, no matter what he may say at the moment, you are passing quite out of his life. My dear, I must stop here at the present. I feel so miserable, though I am so happy. Evening. Arthur's just gone, and I feel in better spirits than I did when I left off, so I can go on telling you about my day. Oh, my dear, number 2 came after lunch. He's such a nice fellow, an American from Texas. And he looks so young and so fresh that it seems almost impossible. He has been so many places and has had such adventures. I sympathize with poor Desmondia, when she had such a dangerous steam poured her ear, even by a black man. I suppose that we women are such cowards that we think a man will save us from fears, and we marry him. I know now what I would do if a man wanted to make a girl love me. No, I don't. But there was Miss Morris telling us stories, and Arthur never told any. And yet, my dear, I am somewhat previous. Mr. Quincy P. Morris found me alone. Seems that a man always does find a girl alone. No, he doesn't. Arthur tried twice to make a chance, and I helping him all I could. I'm not ashamed to say it now. I must tell you beforehand that Mr. Morris doesn't always speak slang. That is to say, he never does so to strangers or before him. For he is really well educated and has exquisite manners. But he found out it amused me to hear him talk American slang, and whenever I was present and there was no one to be shocked, he said such funny things. I am afraid, my dear, he has to invent it all, for it fits exactly into whatever else he has to say. This is a way of slang he has. I do not know myself if it shall ever speak slang. I do not know if Arthur likes it, as I have never heard him use any of yet. Well, Mr. Morris sat down beside me and looked as happy and as jolly as he could, but I could see all the same he was very nervous. He took my hand in his, and said ever so sweetly, "Miss Lucy, I know I ain't good enough to regulate the fixin's of your little shoes, but I guess if you were to wait to find a man, that you will go to join them 7 young women with the lamps when you quit. Won't you just hitch up alongside of me and let us go down along the road together driving in double harnesses?" Well, you did look so good-humored and so jolly that it didn't seem half so hard to refuse him as it did poor Dr. Stewart. So I said, as lightly as I could, that I did not know anything of hitching, and that I wasn't broken to harness at all yet. Then he said that he had spoken in a light manner, and he had hoped that if he made a mistake in doing so on the grave, so momentous an occasion for him, I would forgive him. He really did look serious when he was saying it, and I couldn't help feeling a bit serious, too. I know, Mina, you think me a horrid flirt, though I couldn't help but feel a sort of exultation that he was number 2 of the day. And then, my dear, before I could say a word, he began pouring out a perfect torrent of love-making, laying his very heart and soul at my feet. He looked so earnest over it that I shall never again think of a man must be playful always, and never earnest. Because he is merry at times. I suppose he saw something in my face which checked him, for he suddenly stopped, and said with a sort of manly fervor that I could have loved him if I had been free. Excuse Lucy, you are an honest-hearted girl, I know. I should not be speaking to you as I am now if I did not believe you a clean grit. Right through the very depths of your soul. Tell me, like one good fellow to another, is there anything else that you care for? And if there is, I'll never trouble you a hair's breadth again, but will be, if you let it be, a faithful friend. My dear Mina, why are men so noble when the women are so little worthy of them? Here was I, almost making fun of this great-hearted true gentleman. I burst into tears. I'm afraid, my dear, you will think this a very sloppy letter in more ways than one. And I really felt very badly. Why can't they let a girl marry 3 men, or as many as want her? Save all this trouble. But this is heresy, and I must not say it. I'm glad to say it, though I was crying. I was able to look in Mr. Morris's brave eyes, and I told him out straight. Yes, there is someone I love, though he has not told me yet that he even loves me. I was right to speak to him so frankly, for quite a light came into his face, and he put out both his hands and took mine. I think I put them into his, and in a hearty way. That's my brave girl. It's better worth being late for a chance winning you than being in time for any other girl in the world. Don't cry, my dear. If it's for me, I'm a hard nut to crack, and I take it standing up. If that other fellow doesn't know his happiness, well, he'd better look for it soon, or he'll have to deal with me. Little girl, your honesty and pluck have made me a friend. That's rarer than a lover, and it's more unselfish anyhow. My dear, I'm going to have a pretty lonely walk this and Kingdom Come. Won't you give me one kiss? It'll be something to keep off the darkness now and then. You can, you know, if you like, for that other good fellow. For must be a good fellow, my dear. Quite a fine fellow, or you could not love him. Hasn't spoken yet. That won me, Mina, for it was brave and sweet of him, and noble, too, to rival, wasn't it? And he's so sad, so I leaned over and kissed him. He stood up with my 2 hands in his, and as he looked down at my little face, I was afraid I was blushing very much. He said, Little girl, I hold your hand, and you've kissed me. These things don't make us friends, nothing will. Thank you for your sweet honesty to me, and goodbye. He wrung my hand, and taking up his hat, went straight out of the room without looking back, without a tear or a quiver in his paws, and I'm crying like a baby. Oh, why must a man like that be made unhappy when there are lots of girls who would worship the very ground he trod on? I know I would have if I were free, only I don't want to be free. My dear, this quite upset me, and I feel I cannot write happiness just at once. I have to tell you all of it. I don't wish to tell you the number 3 till I can be all happy. Ever your friend. P.S. Oh, about number 3. I didn't tell you about number 3, did I? Besides, it was so confused. It seemed only the moments from coming into the room till both his arms were around me. He was kissing me. I am very, very happy. I don't know what I have done to deserve it. I must only try in the future to show that I am not ungrateful. His goodness to me is sending me such a lover, such a husband, and such a good friend. Goodbye. Dr. Seward's Diary. Captain Photograph. 25th of April. Ebb tide and appetite today. Cannot eat, cannot rest, so diary instead. Since my rebuff of yesterday, I have a sort of empty feeling. Nothing in the world seems of sufficient importance to be worth the doing. As I knew that only cure for this sort of thing was work, I went down amongst the patients. I picked out one who was affording me a study of much interest. He is so quaint in his ideas, and so unlike the normal lunatic, that I have determined to understand him as well as I can. Today I seem to get nearer than ever before to the heart of his mystery. I question him more fully than I have done before, to the view of making myself master of the facts of his hallucination. In my manner of doing it, there was, I now see, something of cruelty. I seemed to wish him to point out to the point of his madness, a thing which I avoid with a patience as I would the mouth of hell, memory. Under what circumstances I would not avoid the pit of hell. Ame Rome, Renalia sunt. Hell has its price. Forbidden. If there be anything behind this instinct, it will be valuable to trace it afterwards accurately. So I had better commence to do so, therefore. R. M. Renfield, 59. Sanguine temperament, great physical strength, morbidly excitable. Periods of gloom ending in some fixed idea which I cannot make out. I presume that the sanguine temperament itself and the disturbing influence end in a mentally accomplished finish. A possibly dangerous man, probably dangerous as useful and unselfish. If selfish men caution to secure an armor of their foes for themselves. What I think of this on this point, when self is the fixed point of centrifugal force is balanced with the centrifugal. When duty, a pause, etc., is a fixed point, the latter force is paramount, and only accidents or a series of accidents can balance it. Letter. Quincy P. Morse to the Honorable Arthur Holmwood. My dear Ott, we've told Johns about the campfire in the prairies and dressed one another's wounds after trying to land in the Marquesas, and drunk heaths on the shore of Titicaca. There are more yarns to be told, and other wounds to be healed, and another health to be drunk. Won't you let this be at my campfire tomorrow night? I have no hesitation in asking you, as I know for certain lady is engaged into a certain dinner party, and that you are free. There will only be one other, our old pal in Korea, Jack Seward. He's coming too, and we both want to mingle our weeps of wine cup, drink the health with all our hearts to the happiest man in the wide world, who has won the noblest heart that God has made, and the best worth winning. We promise you a hearty welcome and a loving greeting, and a heath as true as our own right hand. We shall both swear to leave you at home if you drink too deep to a certain pair of eyes. Come. Yours as ever and always, Quincy P. Morris. Telegram from Arthur Holmwood to Quincy P. Morris. Count me in every time. I bear messages which will make both your hearts and your ears tingle. Ouch. Chapter 6. Anna Murney's Journal. 24th of July, Whitby. Lucy met me at the station, looking sweeter and lovelier than ever. Then we drove up to the house at the Crescent, in which they have rooms. This is a lovely place. A little river, the Esk, runs through a deep valley which broadens out as it comes near the harbor. A great viaduct runs across, with high piers, through which the view seems somehow farther away than it really is. The valley is beautifully green, and is so steep that when you are on high land on either side and look down, you look right across it, unless you are near enough to see down. The houses of the old town, the side away from us, are all red-roofed, and seem piled up one over another anyhow, with the pictures we see in Nürnberg. Right over the town is the ruin of Whitby Abbey, which was sacked by the Danes, and which is the scene of part of a memoriam, where the girl was built up into the wall. It is a most noble ruin, of immense size, and full of beauty and romantic hints. There is a legend of a white lady who is seen in one of the windows. Between it and the town there is another church, a parish one, round with a big Gladstone to have so trim a glass sitting on its lap. That won't hurt ye. Why, I've sat down here off and on nigh 20 years past, and it hasn't done me no harm. Don't ye fash about them as lies under ye, for that doesn't lie there either. It'll be a time for ye to getting scart. This page? Oh, it did. Damn. Just a couple pages. Go back. Between us and the town of another church, the parish one. Round, which is a big graveyard, all full of tombstones. Okay. This is, to my mind, the nicest spot in Whitby, for it lies right over the town. It has full view of the harbor and all up the bay where the island called Kettleness stretches out into the sea. It descends so steeply over the harbor that part of the bank has fallen away. Some of the graves have been destroyed. In one place, part of the stonework of the grave stretches out over the sandy pathway far below. There are walks, seats beside them, through the churchyard, and people go there and sit all day long looking at the beautiful view and enjoying the breeze. I shall come and sit here every so often myself and work. Indeed, I am writing now, with my books on one knee, listening to the talk of 3 old men who are sitting beside me. They seem to do nothing all day but sit up there and talk. The harbor lies below, with, on the far side, one long granite wall stretching out into the sea, with a curve outwards at the end of it, the middle through which a lighthouse. A heavy sea-wall runs along outside of it. On the near side, the sea-wall makes an elbow, crooked inversely, and it too ends at the lighthouse. Between the two piers there is a narrow opening into the harbor, which, when suddenly widens. It is nice at high tide, but when the tide is out, all the shoals weigh nothing. There is merely a stream of the Esk running between the banks of sand, with rocks here and there. Outside the harbor on this side, there rises about half a mile of great reef, the sharp edge of which runs straight out behind the south lighthouse. At the end of it is a buoy with a bell, which swings in bad weather, and sends a mournful sound on the wind. They have a legend here that when a ship is lost, the bells are heard out at sea. I must ask the old man about this. He is coming this way. He is a funny old man. He must be awfully old, for his face is all gnarled and twisted like the bark of a tree. He tells me that he is nearly 100, that he was a sailor in the Greenland fishing fleets when Waterloo was fought. He is, I am afraid, a very skeptical person, but when I asked him about the bells at sea and the White Lady at the Abbey, he said very brusquely, "I wouldn't fish, Mattel." About them, miss. Them things all be wore out. Mind, I don't say that they never was, but I do say that there wasn't in my time. They be all very well in comers and trippers and like, but it's not for a nice young lady like you. Them feet folks from the York and Leeds, that all be eating and curing hair and drinking tea and looking out on cheap jet they could creed out. I wonder, Massel, who'd be bothered telling them lies, even newspapers, which is full of flawed talk. I thought he would be a great person to listen, learn interesting things from. So I asked him if he would mind telling me some whale fishing in the old days. He was just setting himself to begin when the clock struck 6, whereupon he labored to get up and said, "I must gang againwards home now, miss. My granddaughter doesn't like being kept waiting when tea is ready, and it takes me for a criminal boon geese. For there be a many of 'em, miss, and I lack belly timber. Sorry by the clock." Fun. He hobbled away, and I could see him hurrying as well as he could down the steps. The steps are a great feature of the place. They lead down from the top to the church. There are hundreds of them. I do not know how many. And they wind up in a delicate curve. The slope is so gentle that a horse could easily walk up and down them. I think they must have originally been something to do with the Abbey. I should go home too. Lucy went out visiting with her mother, and they were on duty calls. I did not go. They will be home by this. August 1st. I came up here an hour ago with Lucy, and we had most interesting talks with my old friend, with two others who always come to join him. It is evidently a Sir Oracle of them. I should think must not have been the time of most dictatorial person. He will not admit anything and down-faces everybody. If he can't out-argue them, he bullies them, then takes their silence for agreement with his views. Lucy was looking sweetly pretty with her white long frock. She has got a beautiful color since she has been here. I noticed that the old men did not lose any time in coming up and sitting near her when we sat down. She is so sweet with old people. I think they all fell in love with her on the spot. Even my old man succumbed and did not contradict her, but gave me double share instead. I got him on the subject of legends, and he went off at once in some sort of sermon. I must try to remember it all and put it down. It be all fool talk, lock, stock, and barrel. That's what it be, and naught else. These bands and wafts and bagginests and barguests and boggles and all in them is only fit for the barons and the dizzy women and blowdern. They be now all airblibs, and all grims and signs and warnings be all invented by parsons and illsome-looking bout bodies, and railway touters and skier and scunner halflings, and to get folks to do something they don't do otherwise. It makes me airful to think of 'em. Why, it's them that's not content to the printing lies on paper and preaching them out in pulpits, doesn't want to be cutting them in the tombstones. Look here, all round you, and what art ye will, all the stains holding up their heads as well as they can, put out in their pride, askant simply tumbling down with the weight and the lies wrote on 'em. Here lies a body, or sacred to the memory, wrote on all of 'em, and yet not half of them ain't no bodies at all. And the memories of them cared and pinched snuff about, much less sacred. Lies, all of 'em, nothing but lies of one kind or another. My God, it'll be some scour karma at the day of judgment when they come tumbling in here for their death sarks, all juped up together and trying to drag the tombstones with them to prove how good they was. Some of them in trimming and leathering, with their hands and those slipping the line and see that they can't even keep their group up. I could see from the old fellow's self-satisfied air, and the way in which he looked around in the approval of his cronies, that he was showing off. So I put the word to him to keep going. Mrs. Swallows, you ain't... No. Oh, Mrs. Swallows, you can't be serious. Surely these tombstones are not all wrong. Yablins. There may be a poor few of 'em not wrong, saving where they make out the people too good. For where there be folk to do a bone bowl and like to see, if only it be their own. The whole thing be only lies. Now look you here, you come here a stranger and you see all this Kirkgarth. I nodded, for I thought it better to have sense, though I did not quite understand his dialect. I knew it was something to do with the church. He went on. And you can't say all these sterns and aboon folks that be happening here, snod and snog. I assented again. Then that be just where the lies come in. Why, there be scores of these lay beds that be tomb of old dunk bodybacks and Friday night. He nudged one of his companions, and they all laughed. And Magog, how could they be otherwise? Look at that one. Safest, best in beer bank. Read it. I went over and read. Edward Spencer, Master Mariner, murdered by pirates off the coast of Andres. April 1854. Set 30. Then I came back to Mr. Swallows and went on. Who brought him home, I wonder? It's a nap here one. Murder off the coast of Andres and then you consecrated body lander? Why, I could name you a dozen whose bones in the Greenland that seas above. He pointed northwards, where the currents may have drifted them. There be stems about you. You can, with your young eyes, read the small print that lies here. That's Braitwood Lowry, and drew the father and lost in the best. I left Greenland in 20. Andrew Woodhouse drowned in the same seas in 1777. Or John Paxton drowned off Cape Farewell a year later. Or old John Rollins, whose grandfather sailed with me, drowned in the Gulf of Finland in 50. Do you think that all these men have to make the rush to Whitby's when the trumpet sounds? Me and them Atherums boot it. I tell you that when they got them jostling one another, they come head up like a fight in the ice of the old days. When they'd be at one another from daylight to dark and trying to tie up the cuts and lighten the Aurora Borealis. Ugh. This was evidently local pleasantry, for the old man crackled over it, and his cronies joined his gusto. But, I said, surely you are not quite correct, where you start on the assumption that all the poor people or their spirits have to take their tombstones with them on the Day of Judgment. Do you think that will be really necessary? Well, what else are tombstones for? Answer me that, miss. To please the relatives, I suppose? To please the relatives, I suppose. This he said with scorn. How what pleasure their relatives to know that lies has rode over them, and that everybody in this place knows they be lies. He pointed to a stone at our feet, which had been laid down on the slab, on which the seat was rested close to the edge of the cliff. Read the lines of that thrust in, said he. The letters were upside down to me from where I sat, but Lucy was more opposite to them. She leant over and read. Sacred to the memory of George Kennan, who died, in the hope of glorious resurrection, on July 29th, 1873, falling from the rocks at Kettleness. This tomb is erected by his sorrowing mother for her dearly beloved son. He was the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Really, Mrs. Willis, I don't see anything very funny about that. She spoke her comments very gravely and somewhat severely. You don't see anything. You don't see how funny. That's because you don't know, and the sorrowing mother was a hellcat that hated him because he was Valentine. Regular Latimer. He was, and he hated her so that he committed suicide and others that she might not get insurance and put on his laugh. He blew nigh the top of his head off with an old musket they had been scaring the crows with. Torrent for crows, and for it brought the legs to the dwarfs. Then, that's the way he fell off the rocks, and that's the hopes of his glorious resurrection. I've often heard him say him also that he hoped he'd go to hell, for his mother was so pious that she'd be sure to go to heaven, and he didn't want to have to deal with her. Now isn't that stain at any rate? He hammered down with a stick as he spoke. Pack of lies, and it won't make Greco cackle. When Jordy comes panting up the green with the tombstone balanced on his hump, as it looks that took the evidence. Oh. I did not know what to say, and Lucy turned the conversation. Rising up. Take a drink real quick. Oh, why did you tell us this? This is my favorite seat, and I cannot leave it. And now I must go on sitting here over the grave of suicide. That won't harm you, my pretty, and it may make poor George Gladstone to have so trim a lass sitting on his lap. That won't hurt you. Why, I've sat here off and on for 20 years past, and it hasn't done me no harm. Don't you fash about them lies under you, or that doesn't lie there either. It'll be time for you to be getting the skirt when these tombstones are all running away, and the place will be a barren stubble field. There's the clock. I must go. My service to you, ladies. And he hobbled off. Lucy and I sat a while, and it was so beautiful before us that we took hands as we sat. And she told me all over again about Arthur and their coming marriage. That made me just a little heartsick, for I haven't heard from Jonathan for a whole month. The same day. I came up here alone, for I am very sad. There was no letter for me. I hope that there cannot be anything the matter with Jonathan. The clock has just struck 9. I see lights scattered off over town, sometimes in rows where the streets are, and sometimes singingly. They run about to the esk and die away at the curve of the valley. To my left, the view is cut off by a black line of the roof of the old house next to the abbey. The sheep and lambs are bleating in the fields right away behind me, and there's a clatter of the donkeys' hooves up the paved road below. The band on the pier is playing a harsh waltz in good time, and farther along the quay, there's the Salvation Army meeting in the back street. Neither of the bands hears each other, but up here I hear and see them both. I wonder where Jonathan is, and if he's thinking of me. I wish he were here. Dr. Seward's Diary. 5th June. The case of Renfield grows more interesting the more I get to understand the man. He has certain qualities very largely developed: selfishness, secrecy, and purpose. I wish I could get at what's the object of the latter. He seems to have some settled scheme of his own, but what it is I do not yet know. His redeeming quality is love of animals, though indeed he has such curious turns in it as I sometimes imagine he is only abnormally cruel. His pets are odd sorts. Just know his hobby is catching flies. He has at present such a quantity that I have myself to postulate. To my astonishment, he did not break out into a fury, as I expected, but took the matter as a simple seriousness. He thought for a moment, and then he said, "May I have 3 days? I shall clear them away." Of course, I said that would do. I must watch him. 18th of June. He has turned his mind to spiders now. Has got several big fellows in a box. He keeps feeding them with his flies, and the number of the latter is becoming sensibly diminished, although he has used half his food in attracting more flies from the outside of his room. 1st of July. His spiders are now becoming as great a nuisance as his flies, but today I told him that he must get rid of them. He looked very sad at this, so I said that he must clear them out. Must clear some of them out, at all events. He very cheerfully acquiesced in this, and I gave him the same time as before reduction. He disgusted me much while with him, for when a horrid blowfly, bloated with some carrion food, buzzed into his room, he caught it, held it exultingly for a few minutes between his fingers and thumb, and before I knew what he was going to do, put it in his mouth and ate it. I scolded him for it, but he argued quietly that it was very good and very wholesome, that it was life, strong life, and gave life to it. It gave me an idea, or a rudimentary one. I must watch how he gets rid of his spiders. He has evidently some deep problem in his mind, for he keeps a little notebook in which he is always jotting down something. Whole pages of it are filled with masses of figures, generally single numbers added up in batches. When the total was added, batches again, as though he were focusing some account, as the auditors put it. 8th of July. There is a method to his madness, and the rudimentary idea in my mind is growing. It will be a whole idea soon, and then, unconscious celebration. You will have to give the wall to your conscious brother. I kept away from my friend for a few days, so that I might notice if there was any change. Things remain as they were, except he has now parted with some of the pets and got a new one. He has somehow managed to get a sparrow, and has already partly tamed it. His means of taming are simple, for already the spiders have diminished. Those that do remain, however, are well fed, for he still brings the flies by tempting them with his food. 19th of July. We are progressing. My friend has now a whole colony of sparrows, and his flies and spiders are almost obliterated. When I come in, he ran to me and said he wanted to ask me a great favor, a very, very great favor, and he spoke fond of me like a dog. I asked him what it was, and he said with a sort of rapture in his voice and bearing, "A kitten. A nice little sleek, playful kitten that I can play with, and teach and feed, and feed and feed." I was not unprepared for this request, for I had noticed how his pets went on increasing in size and vivacity. But I did not care that his pretty family of tame sparrows would be wiped out in the same manner as the flies and spiders. So I said I would see about it, and asked him if he would rather not a cat than a kitten. His eagerness betrayed him in his answer. "Oh, yes, I would like a cat. I wouldn't ask for a kitten unless you should refuse me a cat. No one would refuse me a kitten, would they?" I shook my head, and said that at present I feared it would not be possible, but that I would see about it. His face fell, and I could see a warming danger in it, and then there was a sudden fierce, sidelong look which meant killing. The man is an undeveloped homicidal maniac. I shall test him at present craving to see how long it will work, then I shall know more. 10 p.m. I visited him again, and found him sitting in the corner brooding. When I came in, he threw himself at my knees as before and implored to let him have a cat, that his salvation depended on it. I was firm, however, and told him that he could not have it, whereupon he went without a word and sat down, gnawing his fingers in the corner where I had found him. I shall see him in the early morning. 20th July. I visited Renfield early, before the attendant went in his rounds. I found him up and humming in tune. He was spreading out his sugar, which he had saved in the window, and manifestly beginning his fly-catching again. And beginning in cheerful and with a good grace. I looked round for his birds, and not seeing them, asked him where they were. He replied, without turning round, that they had all flown away. There were a few feathers in the room, and his pillow had drops of blood. I said nothing, but went and told the keeper to report to me if there was anything odd about him during the day. 11 a.m. An attendant had just been to me and said that Renfield has been very sick and had disgorged a whole lot of feathers. My belief is, doctor, that he has eaten his birds, and that he just took them and ate them raw. 11 p.m. I gave Renfield a strong opiate tonight, enough to make even him sleep, and took away his pocketbook to look at it. The thought that was been buzzing in my brain lately is complete, and my theory proved. My homicidal maniac is of a peculiar kind. I shall have to invent a new classification for him. Call him a zoophagous, life-eating maniac. What he desires is to absorb as many lives as he can. He has laid himself out to achieve this in a cumulative way. He gave many flies to one spider, and many spiders to one bird, and he wanted the cat to eat as many birds. What would have been the later steps? It would almost be worthwhile to complete the experiment. I might have done there if there was sufficient cause. Men sneered at vivisection, yet it looked at its results today. Why not advance science in its most difficult and vital aspects, knowledge of the brain? Had I even the secrets of one such mind? Did I hold the key to the fancy of even one lunatic? I might advocate my own branch of science to pitch a compared to which the burden of Sanderson's physiology, with Farrah's brain knowledge, would be nothing. If only there were sufficient cause. I must not think too much of this, or I may be tempted. A good cause might turn the scale for me. For may not I too be of an exceptional brain congeniality? How well the man reasoned. Lunatics always do within their own scope. I wonder how many lives he values a man, or if only one. I'd close the account most accurately to begin a new record. How many of us begin new records with each day of our lives? To me, it seems only yesterday that my whole life ended with a new hope, and truly began a new record. So it will be the end until the great recorder sums up and closes my ledger book with the balance of profit or loss. Oh, Lucy, Lucy, I cannot be angry with you, nor can I be angry with my friend whose happiness is yours. But I must only wait on hopeless and work. If only I could be strong enough to cause my poor mad friend here, good, unselfish cause, to make me work, that would be indeed happiness. Okay, a few more pages to go. Mina Murray's journal. 26th July. I am anxious, and it soothes me to express myself here. It's like whispering to one's self and listening at the same time. There is also something to be shorthand symbols that makes it different from writing. I am unhappy about Lucy and about Jonathan. I had not heard from Jonathan for some time and was very concerned. But yesterday, dear Mr. Hawkins, who is always so kind, sent me a letter from him. I had written asking him if he had heard, and he said that the enclosed had just been received. It is only the date lined from Castle Dracula. He says that he is just starting for home. It is not like Jonathan. I do not understand it, and it makes me uneasy. Then, too, Lucy, although she is so well, has lately taken to her old habit of walking in her sleep. Her mother has spoken to me about it. We have decided that I am to lock the door of our room every night. Mrs. Westerner has got the idea that sleepwalkers must always go out on roofs of houses and along the edges of cliffs, then suddenly waken and fall over in a despairing cry that echoes all over the place. Poor dear, she is naturally anxious about Lucy, and she tells me that her husband, Lucy's father, had the same habit, that he would go out in the night, dress himself up and go out, if he were not stopped. Lucy is to be married in the autumn, and she is already planning out her dresses. Now her house is to be arranged. I sympathize with her, for I do the same. Only Jonathan and I will start in life in a very simple way. I shall have to make both ends meet. Mr. Holmwood, he is the Honourable Arthur Holmwood, only son of Lord Godalming, is coming up here very shortly. As soon as he can leave town, for his father is not very well. I think dear Lucy is counting the moments till he comes. She wants to take him up to the seat of the churchyard cliff and show him the beauty of Whitby. I dare say it is waiting which disturbs her. She will be all right when he arrives. 27th of July. No news from Jonathan. I am getting quite uneasy about him. Though why I should, I do not know. But I do wish that he would write, if it only a single line. Lucy walks more than ever. Each night I am awakened by her moving about the room. Fortunately, the weather is so hot that she cannot get cold, but still the anxiety and the perpetually being wakened is beginning to tell on me. I am getting nervous and wakeful myself. Thank God Lucy's health keeps up. Mr. Holmwood has suddenly called to ring to see his father, who has been taken seriously ill. Lucy frets at the postponement of seeing him, but it does not touch her looks. She is a trifle stouter, and her cheeks are lovely rose pink. She has lost that anemic look that she had. I pray it will last. 3rd of August. Another week gone and no news from Jonathan. Not even to Mr. Hawkins, from whom I have learned. Oh, I do hope he is not ill. He surely would have written. I look at the last letter of his, but somehow it does not satisfy me. He does not read like him, and yet it is his writing. There is no mistake of that. Lucy has not walked much in her sleep in the last week. There is an odd concentration about her which I do not understand. Even in her sleep she seems to be watching me. She tries the door, finding it locked. She goes about the room searching for a key. August 6th. Another 3 days and no news. The suspense is getting dreadful. If I only knew where to write or where to go, I should feel easier. But no one has heard a word of Jonathan since his last letter. I must only pray to God for patience. Lucy is more excitable than ever, but is otherwise well. Last night was very threatening, and the fishermen say that there are signs of a storm. I must try to watch it and learn the weather signs. Today is a grey day, and the sun right is hidden in the clouds, high over Kettleness. Everything is grey, except the green grass, which seems like emerald amongst it. Grey earthy rock, grey clouds, tinged with the sunburst at the far edge, hang over a grey sea, which is sand points stretched like grey fingers. The sea is tumbling over in the shadows and sandy flats with a roar, muffled in the sea mists drifting inland. The horizon is lost in grey mist. All its vastness and the clouds are piled up like giant rocks. There is a roar over the sea that sounds like some presage of doom. Dark figures are on the beach here and there, sometimes half shrouded in the mist, seen men walking like trees. Fishing boats are racing for home, and rise, dip, and the ground swell as they sweep in the harbor, bending to the scuppers. Here comes Mr. Swallows. He is making straight for me, and I can see by the way he lifts his hat he wants to talk. I've been quite touched by the change in the poor old man. When he sat down beside me, he said in a very gentle way, "I want to say something to you, miss." I could see he was not at ease, but I took the poor fellow's wrinkled hand in mine, and asked him to speak fully, so he said, leaving his hand in mine, "I'm afraid, my dearie, that I must have shocked you by all the wicked things I've been saying about the dead, such like for weeks past, but I didn't mean them. I want you to remember that when I'm gone, we old folks will not be baffled. One foot rock in the craft cool. Don't altogether like to think of it. We don't want to skirt of it. That's why I've been taking the neck and boot of it, so that I cheered up my own heart a bit. But Lord loves you, miss. I ain't afraid of dying not a bit. I don't want to die if I can help it. My time must be nigh at hand now, for I be old. 100 years is so much for any man to expect. So I'm so nigh to that the old man is already whetting his scythe. See, I can't get out of bed of Nathan. Better all at once in the chest. Or wag as I used to. Some day soon the angel of death will sound his trumpet for me. And don't ye know a greeting, my dearie." He saw that I was crying. If he should come by this very night, don't refuse to answer his call. But life be, after all, I'm only waiting for something else that what been doing. Death be all that we can rightly depend on. But I'm content for what's coming for me, my dear. Coming quick. And maybe coming while we be looking and wondering. Maybe it's that wind over there that's bringing seas and bringing loss and wreck. Sort of distress and sorrow how it's... Look, cried suddenly. There's something in that wind, that hush beyond the sounds. It looks and tastes and smells like death. It's in the air. I feel it coming. Lord, make me answer cheerful with my tongue helps. He held up his arms, make me answer cheerful. Oh, held up his arms devoutly and raised his hat. His mouth moved as though he were praying. After a few silence, he got up, shook hands with me, and blessed me. Said goodbye and hobbled off. It all touched me and upset me very much. I was glad that when the Coast Guard came along with a spyglass under his arm, he stopped to talk to me, as he always does, but all the time he kept looking at the strange ship. Can't make her out, he said. She's a Russian by the look of her, but she's knocking about in the queerest way. She doesn't know her mind a bit. She seems to see the storm coming, but can't decide whether to run up north to the open or put up here. Look there again. She steered mighty strangely, for she doesn't mind the hand of the wheel. Changes about with every puff of wind. We'll hear more of her before this time tomorrow. Okay. That gets me up to chapter 7. My voice is already straining a little. Pretty bad that I got that in chapter 7. But anyway, 2 hour mark. Close enough. Oh. Oh, thank everyone who came in. Lurking or just listening. I do appreciate everyone that comes in to chat with me or listen to me anyway. Let's see who was on to raid. Talbot still telling stories, but let's see. Oh, man, tired. Coffee wasn't as bad this time around. Okay. I'm sure you're right. I just read Dusk. She's playing Fallout 4. I haven't played that for a little while, so I didn't want to go watch and go see people shoot up, so yeah, shoot around anyway. Shoot up. That sounds bad. So, yeah, let's go right dusk and see what's going on. Fallout. So again, thank you everyone for coming in and listening. I do have fairy tales again tomorrow, so it'll be that. And well, hope everyone has a good night. Maybe see you tomorrow. Night, everyone.